Elizabeth. Good morning, everybody. My apologies again for the delay, technical difficulties on my side. So it being 9:30 on Thursday, March 30th, we'll begin the meeting for the Committee on Ways and Means. It being on Zoom, we will have to take a roll call on each vote. So Clerk Semino, if you would please conduct a roll call.
Counselor Reynolds,
Here.
Counselor Flaherty,
Here.
Counselor Maglia,
Here.
all present.
Terrific. Moving on to the agenda, approval of minutes. We have none tonight or today. Old business also, we have none. And we have our new business still is still ordered 23012. So is there a motion to take this off of the table?
Motion to take off the table order 23012.
Excellent.
Second.
Thank you. And roll call, please, Clerk Semino.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Aye.
Counselor Maglia,
Aye.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, terrific. All right, so we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Spellman, if you could speak on order 23012.
If I could just, we're here to take up item number 2, which is the fire department. The fire chief is here to answer any questions you have regarding his supplemental budget request. Also, yesterday afternoon, I sent to Clerk Semino a correction for this sup. I had made a clerical error in the amount of the county opera allocation. The amount that was in the original supplement was $434,665.30. The correct amount should have been $434,655.30, a $10 difference. In the memo, what I did was to make an adjustment to the second item, the DPW. I decreased the amount from county opera by $10 and increased the amount of free cash by $10. And then on page 3 of the memo is a revised motion for the Public Works Department in the source of funds, changing those two amounts, the county opera and then also the free cash amount. So I apologize for the error, and this I thought was the easiest way to correct it and just have one motion that needed to be changed. So I apologize for that, Chairman and councilors.
Yes, thank you. Are there any questions from the councilors on that point? Okay, having none, I'd like to open it up then to focus on the fire supplement. And Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor. Any questions, comments?
Well, so, I mean, the main concern regarding the fire supplement is the extent of the overtime. And of course, Chief O'Brien has already supplied a fair amount of information on the overtime. And I can see that, you know, with the 4 new firefighters that have come aboard since December, there's, you know, that's good reason to hope that there will be less overtime costs, but it's because it's so essential to get those numbers under control.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I think we lost the chief. He's back. Okay, sorry.
Oh,
Very skilled at this.
because it's so important to get the numbers under control. I wanted to ask, you know, to what extent does the hiring of new firefighters help you reduce the overtime costs in the coming fiscal year? So like you're basically at about $1 million in overtime costs this year. What, considering the additional staffing that you have, what do you think it will be next fiscal year?
Well, it's a multifaceted answer to the question, and I can only go by the numbers, the contractual numbers. So if we go 21 firefighters per group, And technically, we're always down at least one per group, every single shift, most of the time two. So when you hire new firefighters, they're very limited in their benefits as far as vacation time. They're not going to take sick time, I hope. So they usually don't accrue much time off, and we add them back to that 21 number, which would reduce the overall need to hire overtime. So in other words, contractually, you have 5 members that are allowed off on vacation or personal days per shift. That brings it down to 16, which triggers automatically one person to be hired. If you're below that 21 to start, now you get 2, 3, maybe more. Now you have people that use FMLA, people that are out injured, people that using sick time, people that are out on admin leave. That all adds up, and it all goes back to the contractual number of 17 men per shift. And I can't avoid that. There's nothing I can do about that.
No, I understand that we have to have the 17 per shift. That's clear as day to me. But I think what I'm trying to get at is because it is sort of predictable, right? You're telling me that you have at least one and probably 2 people out on any given shift. And then you have to add in you have to bring in 2 for overtime to cover that, right? That's what you're telling me. Okay, so now that you have 4 more people, when you do the math, how much less overtime does that render?
So there's no exact science to it, because I'll give you an example. The 6 long-term injuries that I cited in the little synopsis I gave you guys, we got one back last week. 2 weeks ago. Last week on Wednesday, we lost 2 more at a mutual aid fire in Holbrook with a foot injury and a knee injury. So it's a very physical job, and we're an older department, and I am one of those older people. Again, we're at max benefits. The age of the department, I believe, is the average age, I think, is 51, which is really old for a fire department. We're hoping for a turnover. We have some retirements coming up at the end of the year. And when you get new blood in, again, the benefits decrease. The amount of time they can take off is lowered substantially, and that affects the overtime. Less injuries, so to speak.
Right. So you should be able to say, okay, over the last 5 years, I've typically had so and so many injuries. And when if I assume, based on my past experience, that I have X number of injuries at any given time, and also X number of FMLA absences at any given time, and if you you must be doing this to try and come at a number that you're going to arrive at for the 2023 fiscal or 24 fiscal year budget, right? And so when you do that, now that you have 4 new guys, and you assume that you're going to have injuries, and you assume that you're going to have FMLA, you don't know. Of course you don't know. These numbers are only estimates. That's well understood. But when you do that, approximately how much overtime do you think you can reduce? Because basically the question is, do we need to hire even more, especially if you're looking at certain number of retirements?
The hiring process itself is pretty grueling, because you have to get academy spots. You have to submit names with their physicals, with the drug tests, with everything that is required of the Mass Fire Academy. And only then can you get a spot. And that spot may be, right now, they're 6 months out. So you're going to have 6 months of vacancies that you have to atone for with the minimum manning. And it's probably the worst part of trying to do this budget and trying to figure out the overtime and what to request for any fiscal year.
Right, but the 4 you have now, they've already completed academy, right?
they were out in December and, again, I hate to, it sounds like I'm trying not to give you a concrete answer. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to tell you, there's so many variables here. Yesterday, I had one of the people that are out long-term injury with a hip injury. He was supposed to come back second week of April. He came back yesterday, gave me a note. He needs hip surgery. So I have no idea how long he's going to be out. It's just, again, these variables that I have to deal with every single day. There's people, we have, if you look it up, Karen Shanley used to tell me, and I think Ed, you could probably back this up. My department uses the most FMLA in the town, and that includes the schools. I can't do anything about that. It's frustrating.
Okay,
me.
so then, I mean, the contract is what it is, and
Mhm.
you have to take that into account when you look at estimates. And just I think what I'm asking you to do really is to like assume different kinds of scenarios. Assume X number of people out for FMLA, assume X number of people out for injury, assume X number of people out, taking all of their vacation and certain number of sick days because whatever. And then, arrive at some estimates. But
So-
go ahead.
So to answer, I know pretty much, I think I know what you're getting at, and I can answer it like this. We could absolutely use more bodies. Right now, we have a table of organization that's 89 people, including myself. I'm not fire suppression, and I have 4 admin people that are not fire suppression. That leaves us with 84 fire suppression, 21 firefighters per group. We have 4 groups. There's your 84. With the Tri-Town agreement, one of the bonuses for the fire department anyway was we're going to get 2 firefighters that Tri-Town is going to pay for. That's not, it's going to be added to the table of organization, but not to the 21 people per shift or the 17-man minimum. So the more bodies we have, the more money we save in overtime, but the more salary we take on.
Right. So it's, it's certainly not every time you hire somebody, you take on a salary. And then of course that you have to add that in when you think about how much the department costs the general fund. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to yield the floor right now and see what other counselors have while I sort of think about what you've said. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Maglio, you have the floor. Questions or comments?
Thank you. I have a question that's kind of a general question. For my understanding, Chief, for a little bit of background. People have mentioned to me that Braintree Fire Department is different than other fire departments because of civil service and in terms of how people get onto the fire department. What is that difference, and is that playing a role in some of our challenges in getting spots at the academy?
No, whether you're civil service or non-civil service has no role in securing spots at the academy. It's a first come, first serve. As I mentioned earlier, when you submit the information that they need, only then can you secure the spots that you need in the future to replace retired personnel. I'm thankful that we're not civil service, to be quite honest with you, because there's more and more fire departments have applied to remove themselves from civil service. I still think we are the largest non-civil service fire department in the state, unless somebody has gotten out of civil service. And the testing, when you get on a civil service department, you take a civil service test, which is, I can promise you, a lot easier than the test that we administer every couple of years for our entrance exam. Ours is based on 50% civil service questions and 50% practical questions. And the grading is very, very tough and a lot tougher than civil service. But to not fall under those civil service rules helps us.
How so?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that. Each month I go to, I belong to the Metro Chiefs and to the Norfolk County Chiefs. Not so much the Norfolk County Chiefs, but the Metro Fire Departments. The majority, overwhelming majority of them are civil service, and they're forced to hire certain people that may be committed to the armed forces in some shape, some way, shape or form. And those people that are committed have time that they have to take away from the fire department that needs to be covered contractually. Right now, I'm going through that with one firefighter, but that's it. Some of these fire chiefs are on their knees, like with their town council and their mayor trying to explain, the absences and the overtime costs. And a lot of them are civil service related.
So the main benefit is not having to take people who serve in the military?
No, we have more than our share. We're well above our quota of military personnel. I don't hire based on if you're in the military or not. I hire the best candidates available. If you happen to be a Braintree resident and you are military, you're going to probably get the nod.
So are there other reasons? Because the reason you described doesn't seem to be a reason. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something.
Well, there are other reasons. I'm not sure I should really get into them, to be honest with you. It's something that I could talk to you in private about. I'm not comfortable saying it on a Zoom meeting. I think, I think if you gave it a little bit of thought, you could probably come up with some of the answers about civil service. If we got into the whole disabled vet type of thing, they are much more prone to using sick time, injury time than non-military personnel. And they're all legitimate reasons. I'm not getting into that debate. I'm just telling you that as a chief and listening to many other chiefs and their frustration trying to maintain a budget, and especially an overtime budget, that definitely is a factor and it plays into it, a lot of that.
Okay. I would probably benefit from learning more about this.
Mhm.
And we could have that conversation, I guess, offline if you would prefer, but I'm not really understanding. I mean, I don't know that my assumptions are grounded in, have anything to do with what you're alluding to. So rather than assume, yeah, it would be good to have a conversation. So then so that doesn't play a role in the amount of officers, or the ability to fill slots, is what you're saying. Civil
No,
service or not civil service.
No, we have a table of organization that I
I mean,
outlined.
slots at the academy.
How many slots?
No, what
We-
I mean is slots for the academy. Like whether we're civil service or not has nothing to do with our ability to supply candidates, trainees to go through the academy.
No, has zero.
And what does get in the way of that?
Again, there's about a 6-month wait, at a minimum, a 6-month wait. The Mass Fire Academy is located in Stowe. In the last few years, they've branched out. They have one in Bridgewater, in Springfield. You never want to send anybody to Springfield. It's just so impractical to get there, and it's very small. You want to send them to Stowe. That's the best one out there. And it's the shortest wait. But again, to get in there, we have to vet them through the town first. They have to pass physicals, psych exams, drug testing, and then we can submit the names. The academy will not take names on just because I call up and say, hey, I have 4 people that need to get in January. They're going to say, okay, get us all their information. That's the way, that's on a first come, first served basis. Civil service has nothing to do with that.
And when you're getting that information, like, is that something that you do on a rolling basis, or like every September, do you say, okay, we're gonna recruit and then we're gonna try and get everybody, get their tests and physicals and all of that done by February? Like,
Mhm.
how does that happen?
So we've done it a little bit different. This past test, we actually have, we vetted the people that we interviewed with another interview. If they did well in the first interview, they'd get a second interview with the mayor and myself. And then we have 3 conditional appointments that we have outstanding. So these guys are on deck, they're ready to go. When we have the retirements, confirmed retirements, it's only then that the town is going to spend the money to get them their physicals, and then I can submit their names.
Okay, so the process starts when there's an actual opening,
Right, I can't,
or that
Ed
you
won't
anticipate.
let me submit, Ed won't let me submit names until somebody's off the books. And that's, I completely understand that. We can't carry over and above the table of organization that we have.
Right. Okay, all right. And so those 3 are in addition to the 4 that are at the academy now.
Right, those 3 are not hired right now. They're just,
just
they
out
have
there and then-
conditional letters.
Yeah.
Guaranteeing them the next 3 spots.
Okay. And then if one of them happens to move on to something else, there's still 2 on deck.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So then, thank you. That's really helpful to understand that. My other question, I think, is with regard to just general budgeting and finance practices, which you could answer maybe, or Ed, or I don't know, maybe this is a rhetorical question, but if there wasn't money for a supplemental budget, let's say there was a huge catastrophe and there wasn't another dollar, what would happen? Like, is this time that has been worked that we have to pay, or this is the time from now until the end of June?
The requested amount is from now until the end of June.
Now, meaning starting like April 1st, March 15th,
Right,
February 28th.
as I'm looking at the latest, from 3/4. Excuse me, this was 3/16, but the overtime pay from 3/4 to 3/10, we are now at 868, 698.
So it's basically as of 3/4/23, sort of the last quarter of the year, March,
Correct.
April, May, June, right? Okay.
Mhm.
And if there wasn't funding for this, that would mean that we would be out of compliance with, not with their contract, but also with firefighting standards.
We've come across this a couple of times before. The last time was 2007, I believe, when Chief Kenny was here, and this was before we had a mayoral form of government, and we had some budget problems, and there was layoffs, there was stations closed, and there was apparatus out of service, and that did not go over well with the people of the town, and it didn't last too long. Before that, right when I came on, the union had settled a grievance regarding the fact that the town broke the minimum manning, which was 19 at the time, not 17. Again, I came on in 1988. This was settled about 2 months after I got on. I don't have a lot of clarity about the whole situation, but it was a big uproar.
This was 1988.
1988, we had a 19-man minimum. We went from 19 to 18 to 17, where we're at right now.
Mhm. So what would happen is it would mean shutting down. It would mean having less people on, you know, in the less firefighting power.
Right, so basically, I have to have a minimum of 3 on an engine and 2 on a ladder truck. So that means that I would have to take people from other stations and close those stations and run them out of headquarters.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's
welcome.
good. I yield back.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Counselor. So Chief, I just want to get just a couple of questions. I think they're more hypothetical in nature for you. And, I completely understand and are familiar with the challenges that you have had with overtime, considering the contractual obligations, the lack, or I should say, the number of bodies that you're limited to presently, et cetera, and those impacts of how you can get somebody into an academy, et cetera. First off is what role does I guess this might help me understand a little bit. What role in your mind, or what is the impact of the shift structure you have as it applies to overtime potential? I believe the structure is 24 on. Is that correct? 24 hours?
24-hour shifts,
Right.
yes.
And has the town, is that uniform pretty much across the firefighting
is.
community? Okay, and could you just a little bit of the reasons, the benefits of the 24-hour shift? If you could just enumerate just a couple for us, just to give us a narrower focus.
I wish I could outline the benefits of a 24-hour shift. We had a vote on this, I believe, 20 years ago, and there were 6 of us that voted against it. I was one of them. At the time, the union touted it was going to save money on sick time because you're condensing the schedule. So instead of working Monday, Tuesday day, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday night, which is 48 hours, you condense it into 2 24-hour shifts, and that would in effect save on sick time and all the other stuff. And it hasn't, quite honestly, it hasn't, but it's become the norm. It's in the contract. I don't know how you would even begin to get rid of that. And I'm not sure how much of an effect it would even have, to be honest with you. Sick
Okay,
time is sick time, injury time is injury time. And again, the contractual vacation time, there's nothing any of us can do about that.
right. So from a benefits, as a town employee, particularly in this case, as specifically, I should say, as a firefighter, there is a precedence of
Yes.
those benefits. Okay, and I know that from an industry standpoint, you have available to you a lot of things, fire sciences, firefighting, best practices, et cetera, industry standards. Is there something from a national or a state level that you share personnel or even overtime perspectives of potentials, how to manage or suggested practices?
There's NFPA standards, but they won't, they will guide you as to how many people you should have on a truck. They think there should be 4 people in every truck, which we wouldn't be talking about $1 million in overtime. We'd probably be talking about $2.5 million if that were the standard that we had to go by. Again, they're recommendations from the NFPA. Very few departments. Boston goes by that. Weymouth recently went to it 3 years ago, but at the cost of closing a station and bringing those other firefighters. They had 4 stations compared to our 3. They closed the 4th, put those extra guys, extra firefighters on the apparatus. So they have 4 and 3 on the engines and the ladders. Is it standard across the state? No, I think it's all union negotiations, to be quite honest with you. And it's really up to the town what they negotiate.
Great. And okay, so it is what it is right now as far as, I mean, I hate to use that statement, but we have realized this over time, and I don't see any reason for us to not recommend, from my perspective, not recommend approval for this allocation. It is time that has been spent. It is a process that you are, a set of circumstances that you have to operate within. And the results are predictable in some cases that you are going to have this overtime with the challenge being, of course, how does the town and how does the fire department under your leadership, or just under any chief, try to find solutions to mitigating the higher number. You're gonna have overtime based on the simple facts of what the facts of life that you have already enumerated to us, right? And we find ourselves in a current situation, which is a big factor here in Braintree, of a more senior level firefighting force, right? We understand that, and the accumulated benefits, et cetera. Also, what you had mentioned in terms of injuries, the older you get, you're more prone for that. Is there anything in the contracts that say there has to be a minimum physical fitness level or a standard on an annual basis?
We require physicals every 2 years. This was a bone of contention in the recent negotiations between myself and the union. They want a generic note to be submitted when they do a physical. Basically, so-and-so was seen in my office. I think that's a joke.
Where is the benefit? Yeah, where is the benefit for you in order to uphold standards or minimum standards for the welfare of all of your firefighters if you don't have a really clear handle on what the overall state of the physical fitness of your force is when you have that kind of a thing?
I agree with that 100%, and I fought that for 10 years now. It's very, very tough, as you know,
Right.
to change anything in a contract. What I have done in the past couple of years is, which I had never done before, but different times call for different measures. So what I can do in the contract is when a firefighter is out for 60 or more shifts, I can lower the manning on that particular shift to 16. During COVID, I did that on all 4 groups because we had 3 long-term COVID injuries. We just couldn't bear the impact of all that overtime. So I had to do that. And it's actually a safety issue for the public, which goes against everything that my job dictates, so to speak. But I had to do it. I've also implemented the use of IMEs, which are independent medical exams. If I think that somebody is out longer than they should be, the town will send them for an IME, and it's worked. It's had a definite effect in getting them back quicker. There's a cost associated with that. I think it's about $800 or $900 to do these IMEs, but the overtime, that's one overtime shift. So it's well worth the money. It's really the only weapons that I have to kind of not so much fight. If somebody's injured, they're injured. Injuries are part of the job, and I'm not trying to rush anybody back. However, if I keep getting notes from the same people that are out constantly, they're getting sent for an IME.
Got it. And this 60 or more shifts, it's a consecutive.
Consecutive.
Right. And is that for one individual, or is that just every shift that, one after the other in your 24 hours?
That's for one individual. If I was out, if I broke my leg, which, would basically constitute, probably 3 months off from any doctor, maybe 4. So you're working 16 shifts a month. Okay. The 24-hour shift is broken down into a 10-hour day, 14-hour night. So that's 2 shifts. You work 2 24s a week. That's 16 shifts per month, day and night.
Mhm.
which if you go over the 3 months, that's 48 shifts. So now you're coming pretty close to tickling that 60 number.
Right.
And amazingly, in the past couple of years, they'll come back right prior to that 60 shift
Got it.
number. So,
Got it.
or they may come back after 62, which doesn't even make it worth the time to get the order out to say group 3 is dropping down to 16 men. By the time I put it out, they're back.
Got it. That's very helpful. Thank you. That is a good perspective to have. Okay, so the number of firefighters on your table of organization, I would, and then of course the impact that has, your limited impact, a limited number of slots available on the force itself, which would then trigger your ability to go and then to secure slots in the firefighter academy.
Mhm.
There's that cause and effect, or your limit to how you can do that. And you made that very clear to us. So I guess I'm interested in the future about when you do the math, the analysis between, this is what we're spending in overtime on an annual basis. If you were to then say, if we had more firefighters available, we know then that, okay, there's a salary, there's the benefits portion of all of this that would have to be paid for. But when you do a cost analysis comparison, I should say, of what it would cost you to have X amount of firefighters with X amount of overtime and versus Y amount of firefighters and what impact that would have on the overall overtime. You actually have more firefighters gives you gives you better, it equips you better as the management to control overtime because you have more people, right?
No question about that. Yeah, if I had more manpower without upping the minimum manning, that would have a drastic effect.
Okay,
Because people, if I had 2 people out per shift injured and I had 2 extra people, young firefighters with limited benefits, that's just, you plug those numbers and it's definitely impactful.
okay. Would it also be a consideration? Let's just say we'll stick with that scenario. Would it be a consideration? What would be the consideration if those 2 firefighters that were out, they come back now and you have a full manning?
Mhm.
How does that work in your mind?
That gives me,
advantages.
I'll be honest with you, in my 10 years, and I say we joke about it on it, but it's not a joke. I think there's been 6 shifts in 10 years that we've had every single firefighter here.
Right.
We've been destroyed, decimated with injuries over the years. I inherited an older department, and again, I'm one of the old guys. So, but I'm not on the fire suppression side. So there's a big difference between the admin and the fire suppression. The admin guys are here every day. We're not fighting fires anymore.
Right.
Fire suppression is. Injuries are much more likely to occur with older firefighters than they are younger.
Right.
And the length of the injuries as well with older firefighters.
Got it.
It's a young person's job. It's an old saying, but that is the absolute truth. And
Right.
we don't have a lot of young people.
I mean, just off the face of it, look at being a firefighter is a tremendously challenging occupation in the sense that when you are fighting fires, I mean, we're not talking just physicality, but mentally the ability to do your job and the potential scenarios your firefighters could find themselves in is an extraordinarily risky and quite frankly, a very courageous type of a thing to do. But so acknowledging all of that, I'm thinking that there may be an opportunity as you move forward to really, I guess, discussing this with the mayor's office the benefits, and of course, Ed, Mr. Spellman would be able to perform some type of analysis from how we, what are the potential benefits between hiring more firefighters versus the current number we have, and that impact on the overtime overall. You're going to incur costs with more firefighters. We see that, but I would think my experiences would tell me that most likely, unless we're missing something major, a major factor here in all of this, that you would actually be spending less in overtime, and overall budget, you would be spending less by adding more firefighters.
Well, if you just went by some, a couple of true numbers, to hire a firefighter for a 24-hour shift on overtime is about a little over $1,300. You go up to a
Mhm.
deputy chief, it's a little over $2,000 for a 24-hour shift in overtime.
Mhm.
Go back to the firefighter, $1,300 times 2 24-hour shifts a week, which is what they work, is $2,600. They don't make $2,600 a week. So a top step firefighter is $80,000. So if you did it just by those simple numbers, you could come up with a savings right there.
Right. Thank you. That's actually very enlightening. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'm happy to send you guys the overtime charts, is the rates, so you could gauge those numbers. I know Ed has them, but you know, for your own viewing, if you wanted to do your own math. Yeah, I mean, bigger numbers would certainly help me.
Okay. All right. And understanding too, the contractual obligations. And you have, stated that that's a difficult, or it's a challenging proposition when you try to address changes that are contractually granted. But I guess that's what negotiations are for, when new contracts are due.
Right.
And I think we're in a presently, there is a contract negotiations that is.
Yes.
So are the firefighters presently, what's their current contract? Had it expired?
It expired June 30th of last year.
Okay, so they're working presently without a new contract.
I think we're pretty close.
Yeah,
I'd say we're very, very close.
okay. And naturally, that's confidential information that through negotiations that I would not be able to ask certain questions of you here in a public forum.
Right.
My hope would be that perhaps some of these things that we've talked about have been brought up, but I have.
They most certainly have.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That is really the extent of my questions for you, Chief. I want to give it back one more time to the counselors if they would like to have any kind of a follow-up question or comment. So either one of the counselors, you want to just indicate whether or not you want to follow up? Council Flaherty?
I have just a couple of questions. One is, where we have a 17-man minimum in our current contract, and I'll wait to see what the next contract looks like, but assuming that doesn't change, how does that compare to other communities? Like, you're saying that Boston might have 19, and that's what we used to have, so we've come down. But like 17, what's the number in other communities? Do we have that information?
I can get that information, but just talking to other chiefs, and I'm only going to go by Metro, because Norfolk County obviously has a lot of smaller departments. They rely on an ambulance subsidizing the majority of their budgets. We don't do that. That's actually a horrible way to run a fire department. So I have a Metro Chiefs meeting next week, actually. And I'll probably pull the Metro director, and ask him if I can get some of those numbers. But what they'll do is, if you took like a Wellesley, they're very comparable to us in size, and the department as well. They also have a 17-man minimum. Franklin is another one I know that has the same pretty much the same demographics. I know they're larger in square mileage, but you know, the number of residents is pretty much the same, right in the same vicinity. So they usually gauge by the number of residents. If you have industrial, which we do, some of them don't, so they may be a little bit lower, some have a little bit higher. It all depends on the community and again, the amount of people, the amount of residents that they have, the type of businesses that are in the town. As you know, as we all know, we have a stretch of industrial businesses on Quincy Ave that, you know, any town would require, would want a certain amount of firefighters per shift to tackle anything that may happen in any one of those facilities.
Okay, and so as I understand it, it sounds like you have 3 people that have not contractual, conditional letters.
Correct.
Okay, and then there are anticipated to be 2 firefighters that are provided by the Tri-Town water plant.
Right.
Okay, but they are different. And I'm trying to understand the differences between those 2 and the 3 that might be hired on once there are some retirements to make space for them.
The major difference is the town of Braintree wouldn't be paying for them.
Okay, but then we wouldn't be paying for them.
They would supplement our workforce. Instead of having a table of organization of 89, we would go up to 91 without raising the manning.
Without raising the man. And they would be authorized to fill in overtime shifts or no?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they would be academy trained, all at the cost of the Tri-Town. Their salaries are covered permanently by Tri-Town. And that's a boon for us. I'd love to have 4, 1 per shift, but you know, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. And it sounds like Ed is giving advice not to add firefighters before the retirements happen.
Well, I understand that. I mean, we're budgeted for a certain amount of money and, you know, when you take on, we've made exceptions before where we have people, I mean, as Ed will tell you, we need like written commitments. We need people to go to the retirement board. It's submitted to us. I will get a call either from Dennis or Deb at the retirement board and say, hey, just want to let you know, blah, 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 came and said, you know, they filled out their paperwork. It's only then that if there was an extra slot in the academy that I would talk to the mayor and say, well, we have a commitment, he's retiring. And then maybe, Ed, we've done this in the past, we would carry somebody for 3 months or something like that, which is a benefit because we don't have to wait 6 months to get that person in an academy while the overtime piles up. So in those particular cases, it's worth it to carry an extra person for that 3 months while they're in the academy, because when they come out, they automatically fill in. They automatically backfill that person that retired instead of waiting that length of time to get an academy spot.
Okay. And in the current contract, which I know is not going to be relevant for that long, how much is a brand new firefighter, you know, all in when you count up all the salary and the overtime that person is likely to earn and the benefits that they have? Like, how much does that cost you?
Well, you can only go by their salary. The entry level salary, I believe, is low 60s. They don't account for overtime because they have minimal benefits. They only have 2 weeks vacation. They're not going to use sick time. They're very, very unlikely to be injured because of their age and their inexperience. Usually we'll hold them back a little bit. We're not going to put them on the front lines or something and get them hurt. They'll be, you know, it's more the first year or 2 is more of a learning curve for them. They're in there, they count as manpower, they're fully trained, but you know, we're not going to throw them into the fire, so to speak, pardon the pun.
I understand that, but they earn a certain amount of overtime, right? When they fill in for a shift.
They would, but they're not the ones generating the overtime. It's the
Right.
injuries.
Right.
And the extra benefits, the extra 3 weeks of vacation somebody else may have, that generates the overtime. They may work it, but they're not generating the overtime. So basically you would have low 60s for low to mid 60s for 2 years. And then I think after 3.5, maybe 4 years, they go up to top step, which is 80. And whatever the contract calls for now would go up by, I think it's 1.5% in fiscal 24.
Okay. And they go up to 80 after 2 years or so?
It's a little bit more than that, closer to 3.
3 years. They go up to 80. Okay. All right, well, I hope that you're able to get the manpower that you need to reduce the overtime. Because certainly we're going to pay it. Certainly I'm going to support this motion. But that's a really important issue to get a handle on.
Mhm.
And I understand what's governing it. But then, you know, you have to take the understanding of the lay of the land. Here's the contract. Here's what we can expect based on our past experiences. And what do I need in order to be able to make that overtime sum come down? Because it's cheaper to pay a salary than it is to pay overtime. And so I hope you'll get that. But so but I'm happy to support this for this year right now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Council
you.
Flaherty. Yeah.
I
Council
know, it's
Maglia?
like a Rubik's Cube. It's very tough to. I've never solved a Rubik's Cube, to be honest with you, and this is my Rubik's Cube.
I solved it one time. I took the stickers off and reapplied them.
All right.
It was
I
a
wish I
mess.
had thought of that.
Yeah, more than one way. All right. Council Maglio, any?
I do. I
follow-up?
have 3 pretty concrete questions that just have are on my list. So you mentioned the physicals are every other year.
Yes,
And so, and that is determined by the union? Or
that
is
was
that our policy?
negotiated, boy, I don't know when that, long before I was chief. I get a physical every year. I think most people do, but contractually, it's a union thing. They don't want to submit information. I mean, I'm looking for, Joe Smith was seen in my office today. He is in good physical condition and can perform the essential duties of a firefighter. They don't even want that in a contract. They just want,
So, just to put it out there, like to drive a school bus, every driver needs to have a full physical every year for a
right,
school bus. And
Mhm.
that is in order to, so, I mean, I'm shocked that a firefighter who has a far more physical job and doesn't need to do that.
you're no more shocked than I am. I'm still, I fight this battle every year. And when I
Wow.
get these physicals submitted every other year, I look at them and I don't know why, I don't even know why we bother doing it, to be honest with you. It tells me nothing. I mean, forget that I'm the chief, I'm a taxpayer too, and I want to know that all the personnel working in the town is capable physically of doing their job.
Mhm. Right. In terms of the ages, what are the ages of the 4 that are at the academy?
The 4 that got out of the academy are, I'm gonna have to do this off the top of my head, 26, 27. Let me just get my list. I'm sorry. 29, and we had one, Dan Cushing is 33, I think. He came from the highway department.
Okay. And then the 3 appointments, their ages?
22, 26, and 30.
Have we started anyone ever in their 40s?
I hired one. He was, again, if we used to have a point system where we'd give employees a certain amount of points. We had a guy named Russ Mahana who was 50 when he transferred over here. And I got to tell you, never booked out a day, was never out injured, stayed till he was 65, and was one of the best firefighters I've had. I didn't hire him. He was hired before I was chief, but great firefighter, great work ethic.
So in the
Um,
last couple of years, have we ever hired somebody that was 40 or over?
I hired one who's still here, who came from water and sewer, who was in his 40s. That was about 8 years ago.
Okay, just curious about that.
That's the only one.
Okay, and then in terms of, because I think about where you've done a really good job of describing the age of the firefighters, and then the benefits that go up as they move along, move through their careers. What kinds of promotional exams are they required to take, so that when we're promoting them up to higher levels, what is that, do we also follow, what kinds of exams are they, our exams, or do we follow the civil service procedure for that, or how do people get these higher level positions?
We're a seniority based department. There are no there are no exams for promotions. It goes by seniority. What you have to do is when you become an officer, you have to go to officer school. That's a requirement of everybody. Right now, officer school is backed up 1.5 years. So we have people that have been promoted to lieutenant that are still waiting on a list to go to officer school. Officer school is 2 weeks.
Oh, geez, that's it. So,
Mhm.
so if it's just based on seniority, then it's just based on who's been there the longest.
Right, and there's pros and cons to it. And I know people are opinionated on it, and I get both sides of it. For me, I would prefer somebody in their 40s or 50s. That's an officer that has 20 years of experience, which is the normal wait time to become a lieutenant, versus somebody that's 26 and has 3 years experience that has the ability to take a test, but has never seen the inside of a burning building. So there's pros and cons. I
Is
lean
there a
more.
way it could be both?
Again, that would have to be negotiated, and I gotta tell you, I want to be out of town when that happens, because that's going to cause a lot of havoc. That's something that the town would have to come up with. The union certainly is not going to suggest that.
Except that for civil service towns, there are the tests. So that the
Yes.
union does accept that. And that is procedure.
Well, if you're already civil service, the union has no say in that. That's civil service requirements. If you're a civil service department, you promote by exams.
Right. So that would be another difference between being civil service and not being civil service for us.
Again, I think that would hurt us, because you would
Oh,
basically.
I'm not saying whether it would be better or worse. I'm just trying to understand some of these other differences.
Yes, that is a difference.
Okay, because I think that, that's just, it's important to understand that. Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just one last question. This is, I think, for Ed. So what does, I'm trying to figure out how to best phrase this question for you, Ed, so it's easy for you to give me an answer. What are the impacts to, or the considerations of our insurance liability? You know, what is it? MIA, MIA?
Maya.
Maya,
MMIA,
thank
yeah.
you. Right. Our insurance liability or premiums, how would they get impacted, if you're aware, or be able to give us a little bit of insights on? There's usually requirements when I guess, speak for myself, if I get life insurance, I have to take a physical, right? And if I have pre-existing medical conditions, that has an impact on the liability, or I should say, the the way that the insurance company views me as a risk, right? I'm gonna be a little bit of a higher risk to insure if I have pre-existing, say I have a heart problem or, you know, degenerate joint issues or whatever the case may be. Versus if I'm very, very healthy with no known physical ailments, and have taken a physical and I'm in good shape. Those are, non-smoker versus smoker, et cetera. Would you be able to give us a little bit of insight on the potential impact of a public safety personnel? Is there any standard from Maya on insurance and physicals of the town personnel that are being covered?
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the police and fire are not covered by the traditional workers' compensation that all of the other employees would be covered under.
Right, we
This is
go
basically-
111F.
111F is the statute that covers police and fire when they're out. The term is it injured on duty? Is that the,
Correct. Correct. And they also, I think more to your point, Council Reynolds is, and I may be off track here, but are you referring to, so when we hire firefighters, they have to sign a release that says they will not smoke any
Right.
tobacco products at all.
Right.
We also drug test as well. So
Right.
those are a couple of things that,
But
I don't know if the
physical-
police have to smoke anything, but we have the
Right.
heart and lung bill and,
Right,
we
but
think
the
about
physical
that.
fitness aspect,
Right.
it's that's what I'm focusing on, because it has created a question in my mind. Is there an opportunity here to have to take a look how we could lower our premiums? But it sounds to me that well, first of all, lower our premiums, but more to the larger benefit is that you've got a more guaranteed and manageable, healthier firefighter force.
Mhm.
To your earlier points, right, of what of that. So Ed, it sounds to me then that the lack of specificity in a physical fitness report on an individual who is a public safety employee does not have an impact on how our rates are determined by Maya.
Maya would not cover the public safety employees for workers' comp.
Got
Through the
it.
town's health plan, we do have health and wellness benefits, and they run programs through the year
Yeah,
through with increased, walking activity and things through
right.
the various health carriers handled by human resources.
Okay, so the state statute of 111F is what dictates or provides the guidance on that. That's correct?
For police and fire, that's correct.
Okay, and is that something that is something that is at the state level, or does each individual community have a 111F stature or a statute standard?
It's a standard state statute that would apply to police and fire in all 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth.
It's
All right.
universal. It has been for a while.
Great. And does the town of Braintree pay into that? Or is that not the case?
The statute covers the guidelines for it. When someone's out injured on duty, they're paid through the regular salary line item
Mhm.
within the individual police or fire budget.
Right. But so really the impact of the statute 111F is it's just a insurance umbrella for public safety? Is that it?
It's comparable to the workers' compensation that the town carries for all of its other employees.
Ed, would I be remiss in this statement that, and I don't know if this is the actual question, but workers' comp, I know the town actually, that's a policy that they pay into. 111F is not. It has to occur. The injury has to occur for that to be covered. So we're not paying into it until the injury occurs. Is that,
Yeah, thank you. That was,
Okay.
that really puts it more succinctly, and thank you,
Okay.
Chief. Yeah, so, and what I'm going, my line of questioning is what I'm going after here is that thinking about the pre-standards to getting coverage for insurance, is there any impact from the fact that our firefighters are not required to divulge or provide anything more above just he took a physical or she took a physical on such and such a date? That's what I'm trying to determine, because the more information you have, obviously, as a manager, chief, you have a better level of confidence
Mhm.
of the preparedness and the level of risk that you're facing on a day-to-day basis in carrying out the responsibilities of the fire department.
yeah, and I honestly don't think it's too much to ask of each individual to say that they were at a physical and they were deemed to be in good health by their physician. That's really all that we asked for, but somewhere along the way, 15, 20 years ago, it was negotiated that it only had to say they were seen by their doctor for a physical.
Understood. Understood.
It's aggravating, frustrating, many other adjectives that I probably shouldn't say on air, but I try to work on it.
Okay, I clearly understand that, and I appreciate that. That is all that I have from the line of questioning. As I had stated earlier, this particular requirement or this request, I would be in favor of. And that'll be a consideration in the overall vote for the supplemental once we've completed the other departments. So I want to ask if there's anything further from my fellow committee members before we move on. Nope, I see that. Chief or Director Spellman, any comments or additional questions that you may have of us?
Just thank you for the early morning accommodation.
You got it. All right. I'm taking that. That was a serious thank you and not a facetious.
It was.
All right.
It's a
thank
day
you.
off, but hey, it's worth it.
You know, we
Bring your
get,
mittens today.
yeah,
Oh,
and
I'm putting long johns on and a ski hat and I don't know, it's gonna be cold.
all right, good enough. So do we then have a motion from the committee to table order 23012 to our next Ways and Means meeting?
Motion to table order 23012 to our next Ways and Means meeting.
Okay, do we have that second?
Second,
There you go. Thank you very much. All right. And Clerk Semino, roll call, please.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Aye.
Counselor Maglio,
aye.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Terrific. And do we have a motion then to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All right. All in favor, or I should say roll call, please.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Aye.
Counselor Maglio,
aye.
all in favor to adjourn.
All right. Well, thank you. And I will see my fellow council committee members later this afternoon at our continued meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck.
Very
Go
much.
Red Sox.
Yes.
All right.
Have fun.
Okay.
Take it easy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.